Hi. This is for the students of architecture. Others can kind of scroll down, or maybe you can hit a like. Well, the day I finally graduated, long back, about a couple of decades back, I never realized that this real world of architecture was so tangentially different from what I had been learning with so much of an authority for so long. And that's probably the biggest concern that I have. My classes throughout these years of architecture and the classes that we are even taking now consists of a series of lectures and studios that explore the art and science of buildings, which dealt with how buildings are built, how they are designed, planned, executed, and so on. How the climatology affects the comfort levels, how the learning, how it is incorporated with that, the living and the kind of lifestyle that the people have, how the user group has to be studied, and so many other things. All throughout the college life, really did I ask myself a very basic question. How am I going to make a living practicing architecture? As much as when I was studying the art and science of architecture, I was barely aware of the fact that an architect has to survive. And in order to survive, one must understand the business of architecture. Nobody was talking anything about or really even today when people really talk about the entrepreneurial side, the business side of architecture. If you ask me, how much of entrepreneurship, business, about how to run a company of an architect, how much of it was taught in my college days, or how much of it is taught now? It's zero. None. Nada. I had to teach myself. I kept on reading motivational and entrepreneurial books and attended seminars and workshops, and after graduating, surrounded myself with as many entrepreneurs as possible. And let me tell you a couple of tricks of the trade. Students can probably write it down. Number one, people don't buy your product, they buy your brand. If you want to sell your craft, then you have to shift mentally. It's a complete paradigm mind shift from the object scenario to the brand you're building, the reasons behind the reason that you stand for. There is always a reason behind the reason they're trying to sell. As time goes on, this is the only real world of command of higher prices from clients and customers. If someone really wanted the cheapest option available, if they really wanted the cheapest option, they would not have come to you. They want the best option that resonates with their personality. Can you sell it to them? Your personal brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. Remember that. The next point is, business is all about building relationships. There is an age-old saying, it's all about who you know. It's very, very true. I think for any relationship to be successful, there needs to be communication. Communication is about communication. It's more about you than myself. It's about appreciation and understanding of the person on the other end. If you want to be successful in business, you have to master the soft skill of forming bonds with people, and that's it. And that's how opportunities fall into your lap. That's how you get invited to the right places to meet the right people, and that's how you end up doing your business. And you know what? Probably the third point might be consistency beats talent in the long run. And if you have both, consistency as well as talent, you will go far. Remember, there's an age-old story about running a race between a rabbit and a tortoise? What was the moral of the story? Think about it. The most accomplished people in just about in every industry, not just architecture, in any industry that you have out there, are largely the product of consistency. They weren't wildly brilliant. They aren't prodigies. They aren't real runners. They were consistent. Day in and day out. They are probably more like determined tortoises who never quit. Which means if you have talent and additionally can adopt a reasonable level of discipline consistency, you too can become one of the best in your industry. The next point, very important. No doesn't mean that you have failed. It means that there is another option, and there is always another option. Or schools, the entire kind of a schooling system that we have in place today, they do a terrible job in teaching our students how to have a thick skin. Well, that's what is needed to survive in the business job. Well, in schools you are taught if you get less marks, if you fail, and that's the end of the world. No, that is not. Do you remember the days when you had learned about how to ride a bicycle? You fell over and over and over again, but you could only learn because you had stood up after falling. When someone tells you no, that doesn't mean it's over. It means there's always a next time, and there is always another way, another option. That means you have learned something. You know how not to do the same mistakes again and how to move to a different route. Work out something different. How to get the thing done in a different way. Nobody gets it right the first time. Anytime you see some overnight success, just know how many times they have failed before. Sometimes you have to fail 99 times before you get the first win, and that's make a century. So remember, there's always a next time. I keep preaching it over and over again. Finding the right business partners requires a lot of googling around. A lot of searching is needed. Find the right partners. Getting into business with someone is a big decision, and you won't get it right the first time. Naturally, not everyone is a co-founder material. Not everyone is a worthwhile collaborator. The art is not to spend your time measuring, evaluating. It's all about selecting the person, and if you believe you selected the right person, then you give the right person the freedom, the authority, the delegation to innovate and to lead with some simple measure. Search around. You'll definitely find the right collaboration to move ahead. The next point, to grow faster, practice in public. You might have read in school books about several ancient, lonely innovator or artists who finally steps forth into the world after decades and decades of working hard on his masterpiece. Yeah? That's completely a bad strategy today. However, great works takes time. We live in such an impatient, fast-moving society that we forget that our most treasured pieces of work, our favorite innovations, took years and years of refinement to bring to life. If you want to create something, a great design, a worthwhile design, give some time to it. Think over it. But remember to make it public, go live. and tweak it, adjust it as you go. You learn a lot more and grow a hell lot of faster if you practice in public. Reveal the iteration and adjust as you go. Be agile, be flexible, because there's always a next time and there's always another better way to do it. Well, check out the next point. Your friends are not as successful as you think they are. Facebook. Your friends are not as successful as you think they are. So chill. Ironically, social media like Facebook, which opens up ample opportunities of business, of online classes like this one, also does a wonderful job of painting a picture that everyone out there is leaping off cliffs in the Caribbean, checking the time on the Rolex, and leaping into the Porsche, or to go spend afternoon in the vintage coffee shop and all that stuff. Just focus on what you are working on. Everything else doesn't matter. Next point. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. With great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Your idea isn't good yet just because it is your idea. What makes an idea worthwhile? If it resonates with people. And that should be the mindset. What could make your startup a success? There's no point becoming an egoist architect if you can't sell your design to the client. The next point, no surprise, dress for success. What they don't explain you in school, again, is not about dressing in the way that is appealing to others. It's also as important to dress in a way that make you feel confident as well as comfortable within. Be well dressed, be like a gentleman, and keep your shoes shined, because you cannot climb the ladder of success dressed in a costume of failure. The people who tell you that you can't didn't ever try to do something yourselves. The next point, the people who tell you that you cannot do it have not yet done it or even tried to do it themselves. Are you still asking the right questions to the wrong person? Don't ask. Just do it. Don't take advice from people who didn't end up where you are trying to aim. Do not ask your right questions to the wrong person. Think about it. See, it's better to be a specialist in doing one thing extraordinarily well, than trying to do a lot of things of somewhat being average. Be a master of your own trade. And this took me a long time to understand. Start trying understanding from now on. It'll probably take a lesser time. The fastest way to scale up your services or your business or your product, whatever it is to get clear on one thing you do better than anybody else. And do it over and over again. Be consistent in doing it. And finally, let's understand one thing very clearly. We talk about a lot of art and science and so many other stuff of architecture. Architecture is business. And that's the hard truth. Architecture is definitely everything a business should be about. I have published a complete narrative of why that is. Go online, check out my page, and drill it in your mind Architecture is only about business, and ultimately any business is a whole art in itself. A business is art. The art of doing business is what is about architecture. And let me tell you, it's not about some pursuit of an obsession with making money. Money is just a fuel for the car to move on. Money will come. It's not about earning money. It goes back to the first point again, where you have to understand what you are doing and do the right way and be consistent. Think about it.